Like people in many other parts of the city, South Boston residents have been contending with traffic congestion and safety problems. The issue has been getting even more attention since the death of a toddler resulting from a crash in July. Among the elected officials working on the problem is the local district city councilor, Ed Flynn. Thank you very much for being with us, Councilor.
It's good to be with you, Chris.
Talk about what's happened since Colin McGrath was killed in that crash back in July. How has the neighborhood changed?
It was a terrible incident that happened. We lost a young boy and devastated the community, the family. So our thoughts and prayers are with the family, and the community really rallied around. The community really rallied around the McGrath family, but the residents also wanted to see some major changes as it related to pedestrian safety in South Boston. So I think South Boston, the community is coming together, or has come together, and really putting some pressure on both the city and the state, rightfully so, about how we can make our community safer for the elderly, for the disabled, for young children going to school. My parents live off of L Street, right near that incident, and they walk those streets every day. They're elderly and they have a disabled grandson, so it's troubling. But I think we're working together. We're working with the city. We're working with the state and the federal officials as well to try to make South Boston a safe community, or as safe as we possibly can make it.
There were some safety challenges on these streets, in parts of L Street included. You've got dense housing, streets are practically cramped in a lot of places. Visibility might be a challenge. Is this a neighborhood where you really need more safeguards? We
do. We definitely do. We also need to reduce the speed limit. It's currently at 25 miles an hour. I'm going to have a hearing with Councilor Frank Baker to hopefully reduce it to 20 miles an hour. I've been talking to the mayor's office, Commissioner Fiandaca, especially whether we can reduce it to 20 miles an hour throughout the city, or if we can reduce it to 20 miles an hour in and around areas where the elderly live, elderly developments, or schools, or playgrounds. That's a top priority for us, making sure that we have the right stop signs at the right locations. More patrols. We've had several thousand motor vehicle infractions that the police worked on over the last several months. That's key, is continuing the patrols of the Boston Police and State Police. Speed humps is key. Road diets, making the road narrower. A lot of people are coming from the South Shore to along the boulevard and up L Street. They're going at a far great length of speed, but we need to, at certain areas, make the roads narrower, make it smaller, which will hopefully reduce speeds. Studies have said they will reduce speeds, but it takes everybody working together, and South Boston is heading in that way, and we have made great progress since that terrible incident. I'd like to thank also Mayor Walsh and Commissioner Fiandaca, but we have a lot of work to do.
Well, I know there were times and places in South Boston where it's practically impossible to drive very fast, but there are a number of intersections where I can imagine people, they're contending with each other about who goes first. How do you deal with that problem?
Well, one thing we do need to do, Chris, is have a complete study, a traffic study of all of South Boston. The town and the neighborhood has changed dramatically over the last several years. We probably have double the population, more cars in South Boston. So we do need to look at exactly what's happening and make changes based on this study. But we do need four-way stop signs in most major intersections. We need more lights. We need more speed bumps or speed humps. We have some on the boulevard. We need them throughout the neighborhood as well. And also, Chris, we need a public service announcement about what are the rules of the road. How can we be safer? What type of outreach can we have to the residents of the South Boston and to the drivers as well? Informing everybody of the rules of the road. What's the rules for a pedestrian? What are the rules for a driver? Making sure everyone's on the same page is critical.
Well, another thing I imagine you have to contend with here is that there's so many things to be looking out for, to your left and to your right and so on. So when you come to a crosswalk, you've got to see it really clearly, otherwise you might not stop. And you got some ideas for that too, don't you?
Yeah, I do. One of it would be the public service announcement. When you're at a stop sign, by law, you're supposed to stop and wait for 3 seconds. You look to your left, to your right, and left again. We do see a lot of people doing the rolling stop. They kind of look a little bit and then they continue driving. But I think we have to inform the public of what exactly the rules of the road are. But we need road diets. We need to make the roads narrower. We need to have a better understanding of exactly what is happening in South Boston. So I want a comprehensive traffic study. And also lighting. Lighting is key. And making sure that the town is safe for our elderly, for our disabled, for so many young children that are going to the library, or going to South Boston Catholic Academy, or they're going to the supermarket. A lot of our young people are also in South Boston. But we need to do a better job, and we have made great progress since that terrible incident, but there's a lot of work to do.
Well, one lighting problem I've noticed in recent years, Day Boulevard at nighttime, and I think it was about 5 years ago, William McDermott, the former election attorney, he was fatally struck on Day Boulevard.
That's right. It was a terrible loss for the community. Bill was very active in the neighborhood. Congressman Lynch has been very engaged and very active working with Senator Collins. We have speed bumps along the boulevard.
Which is a state road, I think.
It's a state road, but Congressman Lynch and Senator Collins, along with City Councilor Michael Flaherty, have been working hard and working closely with the Mass DOT, with the City Department of Transportation, and with our federal officials as well. But we're listening and taking input all day long from our residents. They know about the current situation in South Boston. We also need to, on West Broadway especially, have to have a plan to have delivery trucks arrive at a certain time during the morning to unload their goods to the restaurants. A lot of time they're double parking. So we are working with the restaurants right now to come up with a better plan, a better solution that works for the business community, but more importantly, works for the safety of the residents.
I saw the city map and all those complaints about the double parking near Perkins Square on Dorchester Street. That's been there for years. Can that ever change, really?
It's changing. I view it as a public safety issue, and when the public is not safe, we need to make major changes. There's one thing going into a store for a second or for a minute, but there's a lot of people that are double parking for a long period of time, and the City of Boston Transportation Department is aggressively enforcing the rules. And it's important that the residents feel safe. The residents feel safe when they're walking across the sidewalks. A lot of the cars going through don't really consider the pedestrian walking. So we're trying to change that image of what's happening right now in South Boston.
And of course, right at Perkins Square, if you're driving around the double parked vehicle, you have to jockey for position, and somebody else wants to turn the other way on Broadway. I mean, it's a nightmare, isn't it?
It is. It's been like that for many, many years, and we are working to address those situations, and hopefully soon we'll come up with a plan to deal with the deliveries along West Broadway in that area you're talking about. We have many restaurants there, and we're working closely with the South Boston Health Center. They're doing a lot of excellent work in the community, but we want to make it safe for people that are going in and out of the health center. There's a lot of elderly there, a lot of disabled, and it's close to public housing as well. It's a lot of people living in that immediate area.
This is BNN News, and we're talking with Boston City Councilor Ed Flynn. Councilor, you've also been interested in some of the labor management disputes going on around the city, and we've just made history this week with the first time ever, I guess, strike by hotel workers. How important is this?
I think it's very important. It's one of the biggest issues facing our city. Local 26, the hotel and restaurant workers, they're demanding and fighting for basic decency, for social and economic justice. You know, the union is made up of heavily of immigrants, of women, of Asians. They work hard. They work hard in our hotels, in our restaurants, and it's almost the first visitor that a visitor coming to Boston will see these talented workers. But they deserve a fair wage, fair health care, decent training, working conditions, and they're not getting it right now. And we need to do a better job to make sure that those workers are treated fairly, treated with respect, and treated with dignity. I was out in front of one of the hotels yesterday supporting Local 26. They have a lot of support in this city, and they deserve fairness. They've earned it.
Now, the management says that they're offering them some increases, but what do you think of what, at least from what you've heard?
Yeah, they're offering peanuts. They're not giving them a fair contract. They're not giving them a fair wage. These workers work hard. They're in our hotels. They're cleaning the rooms. Or they're serving our food, and they work extremely hard. And it's back-breaking work for them. And they're older, and they're elderly, and they're women. They deserve to be treated the right way. And these great hotels, international hotels, they're making billions of dollars a year. Why can't we give a fair wage to a woman from South Boston or Chinatown or Dorchester? They've earned it.
Now, of course, another issue you're involved in it has an overlap between labor and safety. These are the gas workers who've been locked down by National Grid. Start with the safety. Why are you concerned about that?
We have a lot of, well, the steel workers are out, and they're locked out. They're not actually on strike. They were locked out by National Grid unfairly. They cut their health benefits off. It's an international company based in the UK, and we have a lot of gas leaks in Greater Boston. And they're not treating the workforce fairly, but more importantly than that, it's a public safety issue for me. The gas is being released into our environment. People are breathing it. There could be a potential, unfortunately, a potential for some type of catastrophic explosion in our city if these gas leaks continue. It needs to be addressed. We're calling for a city council hearing, myself and Councilor Matt O'Malley. Matt's been working on this issue for many years. And National Grid hasn't been a good neighbor. They've neglected the city, they've neglected the residents of Boston, and they're making a lot of money off off their customers, and they're not treating them fairly. And we're going to try to hold them accountable.
Another issue you've taken up is the referendum question number 1 about staffing levels, that is nurse to patient ratio, and you want to have these passed. Why is that?
Well, our nurses work so hard in our hospitals in Boston, you know, but the hospitals want to keep putting more patients under their care to make more money for the hospital. And the nurses are overworked as it is. We do need a safe patient limit. We need to treat our nurses fairly. They're not being treated fairly by these hospitals. A lot of these hospitals are on tax-exempt land, and they're making huge profits. And they're trying to cut the workforce. They're trying to not treat our nurses fairly. Our nurses provide exceptional care to everybody that comes into our hospitals. They're professional, they're compassionate, they care about their patients, they care about the city, and they deserve to be treated fairly. Our hospitals are not treating them fairly. There's a lot of money that the hospitals are spending on this question, and they're trying to buy the election. They're trying to buy the election and kind of divide our city. But I think our city is going to stand with the nurses because we know how important the job of a nurse is, and we're encouraging people to support yes on question 1.
Now, of course, there is a pretty big figure put out by the Health Policy Commission, more than $900 million a year they say this would cost. What did you think of that number?
I don't agree with it. You know, regardless of what the number is, let's not make profits off the back of our nurses. Our nurses deserve to be treated fairly, but so do our patients. Our patients need a nurse that can dedicate the right amount of time to their care as well. And you ask any patient in a hospital, and they'll tell you the compassionate and professional care they receive from our nurses. Our nurses in this city and this state are the best around, the best in the country. Mass Nurses Association represent them. They're doing an exceptional job, and they want to make sure they have a decent wage, safe working conditions, a safe pension. And it's about fairness. It's about respect for our women in the workforce.
I have to ask you about one thing that makes you stand out from other people in the council. Maybe you're not the first person to break the language barrier on Twitter, but I've noticed, consistently you have multilingual posts, English, Mandarin, Spanish.
Right.
How's that been working out for you?
It's excellent. I tweet and post everything in English, in Cantonese, Chinese, and in Spanish. I have people on my staff that speak Spanish fluently and Cantonese fluently. I represent Chinatown. I represent the South
And I
End.
stand corrected because it's not that. Yeah.
And I represent the South End, high concentration of Spanish speaking. And also I represent the most public housing of any city council. We do have a lot of Spanish speakers. But I think it's important to communicate in their language, and I'm going to continue doing that. And Boston's a city of immigrants, and we need to communicate to them and with them in their language. One thing I'm focused on, Chris, in Chinatown, all the signs are in English. I'm trying to get some of the signs in Chinese as well. It's about fairness, and it's about respect, and letting them know that we care and they're important.
Thank you very much for being with us.
It's good to be with you, Chris.
Boston City Councilor Ed Flynn.